Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we finally got images of the deck lists for those V battle decks, which have gone and come around, they're finally coming out in a few days' time. I was expecting this news a couple of days ago, it's finally come down now, and I, for one, am absolutely delighted. We can finally see what's in them now. We got Venusaur flavor and Blastoise flavor, but we're going to start with Blastoise because Blastoise is better. Now, the images here do come from Alpha Tyrant TCG via a friend, and the annoying thing is we don't actually have images of the Pokemon, so that's a little bit upsetting. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to have to do here is make my best guess, but I think I do actually have pretty good guesses here, so I think we will be fine. Now, starting off, you get one copy of Blastoise V, only one copy in a deck that has now been confirmed. Obviously, important to point out that it is exclusive to this particular deck, so if you want to get it, you're going to have to get it here. But, you know, if you want it, why would you not, ladies and gentlemen? Why would you not? Now, we do have a 3-2 Dreadnought line here, and I am assuming that it is the Dreadnought that we've not actually had released yet. We are expecting to get it in the Shining Fates expansion, and that is the Dreadnought that came from the Blastoise V Max deck. That seems pretty sensible. It's got an ability that says it takes 30 less damage from attacks, and an attack that does 130. Not a great card, but it is at least a new card. Now, in terms of the Sharpedo line here, we can be pretty clear about that one, because there's only actually one Sharpedo that exists in the Sword and Shield era. It is the one from Champion's Path that for 1 energy does 50 damage, plus 20 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. It's not exactly a phenomenal card, but it's kind of nice to see it coming around again. We've got a 2-1 Barraskewda line, and I'm thinking and hoping that these are the ones that came around in Vivid Voltage. They're not the only ones out there, but these theme deck type things do tend to go a little bit more recent. The Arrokuda's the one that searches for Arrokuda and benches it, and the two of them. And the Barraskewda does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each damage counter on them. Essentially triples the damage on them. That's cool. That's a nice attack. I really hope it is a 2-1 line of that, because that is very cool. The Volcanion basically has to be the one from the VMAX deck, and the reason for that very simply is, it is the only Volcanion in the Sword and Shield era. I mean, the only Water Volcanion we've had other than those, like literally the only ones we have ever had, are the Prism Star, and it's not that because it's got a different name, and the Shining Volcanion, and it isn't that because they've got different names, so it kind of literally has to be that Volcanion. It is the only possible Water Volcanion it could be. And incidentally, because we know that that Volcanion has got to be the one in the deck, that makes me also default and say that where a Pokemon is in the Blastoise V Max deck in Japan, it is almost certainly that particular print of the Pokemon that we're getting in these decks. I think we're getting the Dreadnought from the VMAX deck because we have to be getting the Volcanion from the VMAX deck, and that just makes too much sense. The Volcanion isn't particularly good. Best thing about it, free energy, flip 2 coins, 120 for each heads. Let's not pretend that is going to be a particularly game-breaking attack. Not at 4 energy. It's fun, and if you flip double heads, it's really good. But for 4 energy, I think we can do better. There are also 2 copies of a Cramorant, and I'm assuming again that this is going to be the Cramorant that was in the Blastoise V Max deck. 2 energy, 50 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It's not a good attack, but I don't know why, but I absolutely adore the artwork on this particular card. It makes me think of sitting on a beach in Cornwall just kind of staring out to the sea, which I've done many a time, having grown up and lived almost all my life in Cornwall. So, yeah, I'm in with that one. Fun that we get 2 copies. Japan only got 1 copy in their deck. There is a tiny little bit of hope in that if we do get the good Arrokuda and Barraskewda, that it is actually the Cramorant that lets you discard Arrokuda from your bench and do extra damage for each one you discarded, which would be cool, but the fact that there's only 2 Arrokuda in the deck, and the fact that it really does seem to be copying the Blastoise VMAX deck a bit, makes me think this isn't that likely. Sorry. And then there are 2 copies of Wishy-Washy here, which I feel pretty strongly will be the one from Darkness Ablaze. Partly because it's the only Wishy-Washy in the Sword and Shield era, and partly because in these decks, Pokemon really like giving you 1 card, which will allow you to help set up. So here we got the Wishy-Washy that shuffles your hand into your deck and draws yourself a new hand of 8 cards. I mean, the 30 HP is absolutely atrocious, but it is a nice little setup attack. The good news is when we get to the trainer cards, we have no such worries in terms of which cards they are, because they only have 1 version of each. So we've got ourselves a couple copies here of Beanie. Lets you attach an extra energy to one of your Pokemon. Doesn't see a huge amount of play. We got 2 copies of Capacious Bucket that lets you search your deck for 2 water energy and put them into your hand. This is a really good card that does see a bunch of play in water decks. We've got a full play set of Dan, which I'm not entirely sure we needed a full play set of Dan. It lets you draw 2 cards, and then you play rock, paper, scissors with your opponent, and if you win, you draw another 2. So it's either quite good or absolutely terrible. Depends how good you are at rock, paper, scissors. We've got a copy of Energy Retrieval here. That is just a card that lets you put a couple basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. Sees a bit of play. 1 copy of Evolution Incense that lets you search your deck for an evolved Pokemon. It's a decent card that sees play. 2 copies of Great Ball that lets you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, find a Pokemon, put it in your hand. Really good card, sees a whole bunch of play. 2 copies of Gym Trainer. Now, Gym Trainer has been confirmed that it is going to be coming out in Shining Fates. It's a card that up to now we haven't actually had released, but like I've said, it has been confirmed for Shining Fates. We got an English language version of the card scan and everything. Draw 2 cards, but if one of your Pokemon was knocked out last turn, draw another 2. It's fine, but unlikely to see a lot of play. We then get a full play set of Hop. Hop lets you draw 3 cards. It is your generic, ordinary, everyday, run-of-the-mill supporter card, and it's going to see very little play because there are so many other cards we've got that are better. We've then got a copy of Sonya. Lets you search for either 2 basic Pokemon or 2 basic energy. Sees a bit of play here and there. And 2 copies of Switch. And although it lets you switch your active one of your bench Pokemon, and although, like every deck plays 4 Switch, everyone has 4 Switch at this point. And then you got a bunch of water energy. And this worries me slightly. Because actually, in recent theme decks, we've been getting stuff like Professor's Research and Marnie. We've been getting really good cards. We've been getting staple supporters. And here, your main supporters, you're getting playsets of Hop and Dan. I do look at this a little bit and think these lists are not quite as good as recent theme decks, although they do have a Pokemon V in them. Moving over into the Venusaur VMAX deck, we've got ourselves a copy of Venusaur V. Once again, there is only 1 copy, and once again, please remember, this is exclusive to this deck. If you want Venusaur V, you gotta buy it here. Now, there is a 3-2 line of Yanmega, and again, I think it is overwhelmingly likely that this is actually going to be the Yanmega that was in the Venusaur VMAX deck. And 2 energy, 120 damage, 30 to yourself. On a stage 1 Pokemon with free retreat, I don't hate Yanmega. I actually kind of like Yanmega. The Yanmega's kind of cool. We have a 3-2 line here of Goat, which has to be the one from Vivid Voltage, or is overwhelmingly likely to be at least. Free energy, 160 and do 30 to itself is fine, but I don't think it's a card we're going to be getting excited about anytime soon. We've got a 2-1 Eldegoss line here, and again, you've got to think this is the Eldegoss line from the VMAX starter set, which means 1 energy, heal all damage from one of your bench, or 1 energy, 50 damage, but if you flip tails, this attack does nothing. There is that really nice Eldegoss that lets you get a whole bunch of energy and attach it, and it evolves from the Gossifleur that lets you get your Pokemon and all of that. But I don't think that's what we're getting here. It would be weird if this deck, which is kind of following the Venusaur VMAX deck, although obviously not with the VMAX, that's a promo over here, you know, it's got the Yanmega line and the Gossifleur line, etc., like the Venusaur VMAX deck. Be weird if it wasn't actually those that we got. Now, the Durant here is kind of a weird one. I'm imagining it's probably the Sword and Shield Durant. Because now there is another one coming in Battle Styles, but I can't imagine they would put Battle Styles cards in a product that was coming out a month and a half before Battle Styles. That is not generally the way Pokemon tend to do things. So there's 3 copies of it, and presumably it is the Durant from Sword and Shield. 2 energy, 30 damage, but if there's a Durant on the bench, you do 60 more. Can't say it for certainty, because again, that's quite an old card to be putting in a theme deck. But the only other option is we bring forward the Durant, which isn't actually coming out until 6 weeks after this deck. And that would be really weird, and is just not Pokemon style, so I refuse to believe that's happening. It's got to be the one from Sword and Shield. We've got a couple copies here of Heracross, and the most sensible thing here is that we're talking to Heracross from Rebel Clash. It's the one Heracross we've had in the Sword and Shield block. 2 energy, 30 damage, make your opponent switch, 3 energy, 110. It's fine, but it is very much the definition of a card, which is fine, but no more. And then the Indeedee coming along has got to be the Indeedee from Shining Fates, because it's the only colourless Indeedee we've got, although again, this isn't actually coming out till February the 19th, so these couple of cards that have got to be brought forward from Shining Fates, your Gym Trainer, your Indeedee, they've got to be here, and this is a little bit early. This Indeedee lets you search for a basic energy and attach it to a bench Pokemon. I don't like it. 2 energy, 20 damage, plus 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active is fine. But because you're not hitting any kind of weakness here, I'm really not a fan. It does strike me as a little bit weird that they are bringing in cards from Shining Fates 2 weeks before Shining Fates actually releases. But they have to, essentially, looking at the deck list. I don't think they're bringing in anything from Battle Styles, though. That would be way too early. As I've said with these Pokemon, there is a chance I'm wrong about a couple of these, because there are a couple of options. But judging by what Pokemon generally tend to do with these deck lists, I feel pretty confident I've got these right. If I am wrong about any of them, I will update the description or pin a comment, probably pin a comment, as soon as I know for certain. Now, over in the trainers, we've got a very, very similar thing going on here. So we've got 2 copies of BD for the energy, 4 copies of Dan. We got 1 copy of Evolution Incense and 2 copies of Great Ball for Pokemon Search. 2 copies of Gym Trainer, 4 copies of Hop. But then it's a little bit different. We've got 1 copy of Pokemon Catcher. Flip a coin. If heads, you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon when they're active. It's a good card, sees a bit of play, so that's nice to have in here. And then we've got 2 copies of Potion, which heals 30 damage from from one of your Pokemon. We've then got 1 copy of Sonya and 2 copies of Switch. So essentially, we are swapping 1 copy of Energy Retrieval and 2 Capacious Bucket for 1 Pokemon Catcher and 2 Potion. Those are the differences between the 2 deck lists here. And they do look a little bit weaker than the starter decks we've had so far. And it really does seem like these are replacing starter decks, because they look an awful lot like starter decks just with a Pokemon V in. So we can probably cover this more in the future. But right now, I am going to say I think these are replacing theme decks. But wait, there's more. Because there are a couple of copies of Holo Boss's Orders Lysander. Now, essentially, we have not seen the individual decks opened. We have only seen the double deck opened, but the double deck comes with an extra pack with 2 Holo Boss's Orders, and then 2 Quick Ball, 2 Marnie, and 2 Turbo Patch. All good cards, incidentally. Now, the likelihood is at the moment, though we do not have confirmation of this, But the likelihood is this is only in the double pack. Because if it was in the single packs, you would literally be better off buying 2 single packs than the double. That doesn't make any sense. This seems to be a bonus for buying the 2 decks together. I have not confirmed that. I will let you know as soon as I have. But essentially, I mean, the 2 Holo Boss's Orders Lysander is good enough on its own. But then you get 2 Turbo Patch, 2 Quick Ball, 2 Marnie. These are actual staples. This sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. Of course, Boss's Orders Lysander was first seen in the VMAX deck, so this does make a whole bunch of sense. But the fact that they're coming as Holo, yes! Absolutely. And incidentally, that little pack with the 2 Holo Boss's Orders Lysander has made me go from, I'll probably pick up one of each to, I'm picking up the double pack, it looks so good. So there we go. I told you I'd bring you the deck list as soon as I had them. I now have them, and I brought them to you. Mission complete. Except for the other, billion missions we're still left on this channel, don't worry. I ain't going nowhere. So I want to know what you think about these deck lists, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know if you think they are going to be better than regular theme decks, worse than regular theme decks, whether you think these are worth it, and whether you think that little extra pack for the double makes you want to buy the double pack like it does me. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.